Congressional District in Illinois, which covers mainly Chicago.
It does.
It,
Now they just changed it a little bit. It goes all the way up north a little bit and
hmm.
goes over to the west, but that's mainly at Chicago area.
How's that experience running for Congress in such a, uh, I guess, important city? I mean, Obama has come out of there, right?
Yeah, we've lived in the area quite a long time. Went to college in the area, so we pastor a church in the area. So it's uh, it's actually a privilege.
Mhm.
Um, the work we do has been throughout the Chicagoland area, so it's kind of a natural.
Yeah, and it's a pretty unique city. And uh, so, what inspired you to run for Congress, first of all?
Well, probably the biggest thing is to help people uh, and to put forth our ideas. I think that you can't complain if you're not willing to try. And part of our thing is to throw my hat in the ring and help.
Yeah, and you're in an uphill battle because, from what I understand, it's a really deep blue district.
It is. This district hasn't been in Republicans' hands since, what is it, 1944.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's probably a 70-30 district.
Yeah, and it's really tough because when it comes down to the differences in parties, we really need to figure out what's best for the country, and we're so divided currently as a country because people are so loyal to their ideas that they just don't want to accept maybe other ideas could be more helpful, or just exchange ideas without the fighting that we see so much.
Exactly. That's um, that's one thing our campaign is uh, focused on. All right, I guess if a campaign would have a theme song, it would be "We All Bleed the Same" by the former Mendisa. So we try to take the approach to be a bridge builder. That's
Mhm.
I know that sounds a little fairy tale-ish. Everybody maybe says that initially, but we really do believe it. I think it's our job to find common ground with people. And of course, it's a contact sport. Politics is very rough and tumbling, but we got to do better and we got to at least try.
Yeah, and I think that puts me in a unique position because, especially from a lot of podcasts, even though a lot of podcasts are independent, a lot of the podcasters are still influenced by certain algorithms that just confirms their biases. And I try to shy away from all of that. And I understand that I do have certain biases, but the way that I put it is that I have ideas that I agree with, and they're not my ideas. Let's just be real about
Hmm.
that. Like, they're not my ideas. They're just certain ideas that I agree with. But a lot of people take those ideas as part of their identity. So if you disagree with those ideas, they get very defensive. And I think we need to move away from that and understand that it's okay to disagree.
Oh, yeah.
We all want what's best for the country, and fighting each other, we're not going to get that because we are facing real threats from all over the world. And if we're too focused on fighting
Mhm.
each other, we're never going to come to a conclusion and find some common ground that we all are Americans. We all just want the greatest country in the world, but we're being persuaded by these other voices that we do need to
It's
fight
true.
each other, and that is being used as a distraction.
It's both sides. It's both sides, the far right and the far left. Hey, and I don't criticize. I have friends on both those, but
Mhm.
it's hard to get elected today in regional politics because you gotta to win the primary, you got to be the far right or far
Mhm.
left. But I think at the end of the day, you look younger in here. I think the younger people, uh, for the most part, and I really mean this, um, have probably come to some thinking that the way you are. And I
Mhm.
think people want to, fighting isn't going to solve the problems. And we got to learn to get along. Just like with this war thing. Okay, there's two sides of this war in Iran. But I saw something the other day. They were cheering. They said, "We look forward to our soldiers coming home in caskets." Well, that's the far left. Of course, there's the far right that does similar things in other ways.
Mhm.
All I'm getting at that we have to be better as a nation than that. It makes me sorry for our country when we think that we can't come together on some basic things, whether you agree or
Mhm.
not. We got to learn to get along better.
Yeah, like that is crazy. Just wanting chaos just so you can say that I told you so. Like that's crazy to me. But I mean, it is true. Like supported Bernie, and that's kind of what drove me into
Hmm.
politics. I voted for Republicans. I voted for Democrats. But as time goes by, I see that it's just a lot of fighting with each other, and we just can't have that because you mentioned you get it from the far right, you get it from the far left. And recently, I had a conversation with a friend, and I told him, Democrats have a really good chance of flipping the House because of how the economy is going. A lot of people don't support this war in Iran, and
Right.
there's just a lot of things going on. But he's such a, and this is where I like to make that distinction between Trump supporters and Trump loyalists.
Hmm.
That people will support him, and these are the Trump loyalists that people will support him, even though if he flips everything they initially supported them or him for. So I had a conversation with a friend, and he told me that no, he that I'm wrong. That Republicans have this in the bag because uh, there's this huge issue about immigration, and immigration
Hmm.
is like a big issue. And I told him, yeah, but the economy is really bad. Where on the S&P 500 has dropped for the fifth week in a row.
Yeah.
Gas
Yeah.
is $5, averaging around $5. There are so many more issues that is further than just immigration. People want to feel safe, right? And we just can't ignore that. But also, people are more interested in being able to put food on their table. People are more interested, are they going to have a job a week from now? It's a lot of more issues that it doesn't come down to immigration. So if you put all your eggs in one basket, and that's with everything in life, you will have so much weight in one issue that you keep
Hmm.
forgetting about everything else. And you do make a good point that you want to build the bridges, that let's come to a common ground. And one of those common grounds is a good economy. And I think
Hmm.
that is far more important than just one specific issue and running on that one specific issue. You need to focus on everything because people will vote for their wallets. Uh,
It's
uh,
true.
yeah. And I think that's the most important thing. So, like, what is your uh s- like specific a specific view on that?
I will say, as far as what you said about Bernie, actually, hey, I liked a few things Bernie said. As a matter of fact, he made sense. Uh, it, it- Now, I haven't listened to him for a while, but a few
Mhm.
years back, he made sense on some things that that uh, that were appealing, I should say. Not that I would uh, go down that road, but
Mhm.
at least he cares. He was trying, and that's authentic. Being authentic is a big thing to me. Yeah. So now let me answer your question. What, as far as the economy? And as far as all the different things, there are a lot of issues. Here's the thing. Right now, you got to push certain things to get people's attention. And that's what the parties are doing. I understand. I get it. I got two kids out in DC. One works for a congressman, and one did for years, was the chief of staff. And so I understand all that. And, but I think we have to do better. I really do. I think we have to um, uh, uh, try to, what are the main issues that affect our country? And
Mhm.
there's big ones. I, you know, I was at the lake where that lady, young girl, was killed. I spent a lot of time there this week. But in walking around, I went and had breakfast. You saw people with mental issues,
Mhm.
addictions. And I have a son that graduated from law school, and he almost lives on the streets of Chicago. And when I'm getting at, to graduate from law school, you got to be a little bit okay. And he's a drug addict.
Mhm.
And what I'm saying is there's a lot of issues that are affecting families, and we should not be uh, trying to score points foolishly. We really, here's what I like what you said. You said, hey, we love this country. And I think that's what we got to focus. How are we going to leave it to the next generation? And we have to think of what's the good for the country. Everyone has different viewpoints, of course. Everyone, that's why there's parties. But I think there's probably five things that, don't want to go broke. We got to
Mhm.
sustain the dollar. We want a safe country as far as, you don't want foreign countries coming over and invading. So I think we can agree on probably five things. I think we want good homes, uh, individuals that are free from mental illness or good lives. So I think there's probably five things we could really come together on. And those are the things that I want to work on.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think even when it comes to mental health and drug addiction, it's people don't really understand. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't really get it that it could affect literally anyone. And especially let's talk about attorneys and people that go to law school. We know that attorneys have like one of the highest depression rates, so it could affect literally anyone. And I mean, what are we going to do about that? We could talk about stopping the importation of drugs, but what with what we already have here, and I mean, I live in Vegas. I see this huge homelessness problem, and the
Hmm.
issue also with homelessness itself is, for one, there's people enriching themselves. There's a financial incentive to keep
Oh, yeah.
homelessness
There's,
active, but also
hmm
there's homeless individuals that don't want the help, that
it's,
they're comfortable being homeless, but now that drains the system because we know that the system has scarce resources. So where do we even tackle that from if it's coming from so many different angles?
I guarantee you, you could, it's coming from, and there's a lot of people that don't want help. Like not trying to share something personal. My son don't want help,
Mhm.
and one of my, I have seven kids, so I don't want to say one of them, don't. So it makes us. We go to bed almost every night. Me and my wife, very sad
Mhm.
because we try everything. I've tried everything. So there is a lot of people, but as a country, listen, here's what I think. I think that if we can come together, hey, you got to have two parties, three parties, four parties, whatever. You got to have differences. Opposition is good.
Mhm.
But with that being said, if we can come together on some of these issues, and there are people working together, uh, uh, when what you see on TV, uh, sure they fight, but like they say about Reagan, he would go have a drink with when he was president with his opposition
Mhm.
uh, at the end of the day. So I do think though there are people, but the media, they've forced people to fight almost. I'm not saying you media, but people, the cable channels, and I watch them. But they almost force people to fight. We got to think of what's best. This
Mhm.
homelessness is a big issue. Uh, uh, but I think if we have a voice, I think that we can make a big dent.
Yeah, and especially the media. The media has turned politics into a sport where there has to be a
It
winner
is.
and there has to be a loser. And I mean, if 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 someone loses, like, what does that really mean for the country? Like, are they wanting to have someone lose that bad just so they could prove that their side is better? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
You know, I remember one time I didn't watch cable news for like a week.
Hmm.
This is a little while back. Now I'm in the campaign. I watch it to keep up on things, but
Hmm.
I went back and I turned it on. You know what? I was in a good mood before that. Within 5 minutes, I was angry. And I checked myself. I was angry at the other side. And before that, I wasn't angry. What I'm getting at is,
Hmm.
they affect more than we know.
Hmm.
And I think that, truthfully, that's why I'm glad. I think California had one even of social media a little bit. I like social media. I use it. I'm big on it. But I think that if we are uh, hurting young ones' minds in the wrong way, I think that needs to be looked at. I think probably that's the same way with cable news, and I think it has an adverse effect. You know what I heard once, and no, I'm not trying to get on that. This by no means on this
Hmm.
high of yours, but I did hear uh, they have really, they find what makes the public mad and to keep their attention, and that's how they produce their news. Well, come on, that's not good. That's not, you
Hmm.
know. I understand you got to be smart, but I think we could do better.
Oh yeah, we definitely can, but are we? I mean, I don't know because it's working. At least it's working for them. But we know that legacy media is going on a downhill. We know that less people are watching it. So if it changes, I mean, I don't know. Now more people are listening to podcasts, and the thing with
Good.
podcasts is that there are longer conversations, so you could actually understand a person's character. And I mean, podcasters are independent, but also they're influenced by their by those same algorithms for the based on the biases they already have. So they're not really getting any new information. They may be listening to other podcasters that have a very narrow perspective, and if you provide them with information, as I mentioned, like this friend that I was talking to, he fails to see the other side of the equation because he's too focused on this one issue that he really thinks that one party could win every single election. But that's not how probability works. We know that it
Right. We,
changes. People change their
yeah.
perspectives, people change their
Yeah.
opinions often. So you need to understand the other side. And you said opposition is good. Like, it's certainly good, but we also need to understand that within one party there's hardly any opposition within that party, which reinforces one perspective, and you only see the other side of the uh, or the other party as the opposition. But it's crazy to me that one party could be right on every single issue they push. That's not a that's not a way for self improvement, because even when it comes to self improvement, you need to look at yourself and see what you're doing, like some self reflection to improve. And if you
Hmm.
go around thinking that you're the best person in the world, you won't leave any room for improvement. And I think we're seeing that as a party. Like, you need some self reflection and realize that everything that you're doing, you can't be right on every single
No.
issue.
No. No.
Mhm.
Completely. You're right. You're not going to be. And that's self-reflection. I like that. I like what you said there because listen, no one is going to be right on everything. So I think probably the one of the things that would help us is to, I don't want to bring religion or anything, but our church
Mhm.
I pastor is probably 70% Democrat
Mhm.
and 30% Republican. I'm running as a Republican. Now, we don't talk about politics in church, but
Mhm.
everybody knows what I stand. But what I'm getting at, we're a very multi-ethnic. We're probably 40% black, 30% Spanish, 30% white church. But we get along pretty good. We do. We laugh, we joke, and because we meet every week and we all have a meal together, and we have a big meal after the service every week,
Mhm.
free meal. What I'm getting at is, I think if we can learn to cross, uh, uh, you said, I think you said you voted Democrat. I think one time I heard you maybe voted the other.
Mhm.
That's good. What I'm getting at, so evidently you have an open mind. You're trying to think for yourself. And we got people that are strong, strong Democrats that worked for Jesse Jackson's campaign and all Obama's and very strong. But hey, they love me and I love them. Truthfully, if I had a choice to be which ones I'd like, I'd probably want more of the Democrats in our church than the Republicans. So don't, maybe I should say that. That's a joke. Here's what I'm
Mhm.
getting at, because it's about intentionally trying to get along. Now,
Right.
I'm the pastor of church. I want us to get along. I want us to get along. But if we now, as Congress people, can have the same thing when we're done, once we're sworn in, intentionally say, okay, my goal is, to try to come up with good policy for a country. And but here's the problem that I don't know how we're going to cure this. Back home, you got a base. You got a base that's going to, demand some things, and they're driving the agenda right now. I don't know how we get over that because that's a big issue, and it's
Mhm.
more polarizing than ever.
Yeah, and from what I think is that it's power dynamics, and in order to ha- have gain and keep that same power that you've been comfortable for so long, you need to keep people divided, because then when you keep people divided, you have more control over a certain demographic, right? And I mean, I think that's what's happening with the country. We need to start getting away from that. And I mean, I started this podcast because I've brought so many different people, and I like having so many different perspectives. And
Hmm.
I guess you could call me an open mind. Like, I'm just being me. I like being open, because once you have an open mind, you get to understand the issues that are happening in the world without just being blinded by these preconceived notions that you already have. So, I mean, I hope that we could get to a point that where we do have common ground, and we understand that, if you, whether you're like in, you said church, whether you're at a concert, you get to understand that you are able to relate to a lot of more, like a lot of people there, and you're able to get along with so many people. If you're at a concert, you're all enjoying in this one building,
Hmm.
enjoying
Hmm.
the same
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm.
But when it comes to politics, we're just fighting all the time. But if we could get to a point that we're just one country, we maybe have two different sides. And I think people, even at sporting events, get along better than if you're
Yeah. Oh
talking about
yeah. Yeah.
politics.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they do come together. Now, unless you're the Bears and the Packers, they'll still fight when they're up in Lambeau Field a little
Mhm.
bit. But no, I remember we were having a forum at the NAACP forum in Evanston. You probably don't know where Evanston is, but that's where my opponent, the Democratic opponent, is
Mhm.
the mayor of
Mhm.
Evanston. But after the forum, we both, caught each other's eye. We went up to each other. He said, he goes, I look forward to running against you in the general. I was thinking, man, so you're saying I'm going to win? I didn't know I was going to win. I'm thinking, oh, you're bold. You're saying you're going to win. And he had 15 opponents or 14 people, you know. But here's what I said to him, because I wanted to strike a conversation. I like doing that. I said, just so you know, I don't do politics the way others. And he said, I don't either. I like that. I think we had an agreement that we're not going to be down in the mud and just try to hurt one another for the sake of hurting one another. The Chicago Tribune called me, was it yesterday? I think, yeah, it was yesterday, asked me for a comment. They were writing a story on him, uh, Mr. Biss. And I think he had like maybe he was a professor of college and he dated one of his students. Well, he was 26, 20, wasn't a big deal. But they were trying to get me to say something. I couldn't. I don't think they liked it. I really couldn't. Yeah, I said, hey, if he broke policy, that's one thing. That's about the hardest thing I said.
Mhm.
What I'm getting at is I think that we need at least try. We shouldn't try to make enemies. When Jan run, you don't know who this is. She's the current congressman.
Mhm.
She was getting up there in age, and we were at a debate one time years ago about something else, and she came out of the bathroom with a bloody nose, and there was someone behind me. Oh, expose her, some lunatic Republican, and expose her. Look at her, and there was cameras behind. You know what I did? I stood in front of her so no one could get a picture.
Mhm.
And ever since then, she sends me a Christmas card, and we get along. I'm saying that as an illustration to say that's what we need. We need
Mhm.
to not try to hurt each other foolishly. Because if you're mortal enemies, how are you going to, if you really hate each other, you're
Yeah.
not going to try to come together. I think we really have to be deliberate in this. So
Yeah.
there you go. Sorry for the long illustrations there.
No, no, you're absolutely right. And we also understand that there's theater and then there is like real hatred. And some politicians have real hatred, but other politicians are just playing the part, especially when it comes to the primaries. And we saw it during the 2016 election, I want to say, when Trump was running the first time. I think that was the same time that Marco Rubio was
Yeah,
running, and they were just throwing jabs at each other. And now he's what, the
yeah, they were.
Secretary of State.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, it happens sometimes. Sometimes it's just, and I think this is what Trump understands, that it's just politics, and he's going to throw jabs, but it's all in friendly, um, friendly banter. But I guess when it comes to Democrats, on the other hand, I mean, I think there is like some real opposition there. But when it comes to his colleagues, it's just, friendly banter. But if we could get that across the board to the other side and say, I mean, we're all running for the same office. What can we do to actually improve the country and improve on these threats that we're facing? If we're able to sit down and have like a cordial conversation, I think a lot of these issues could improve. And I don't know if that could even happen, because people are so divided, and especially with my opinion, what I think about the No Kings protest that is happening, like all over the country.
yeah,
eh,
right.
I think there
Chicago
are,
here too.
yeah, like I think there are some outside influences pushing this. I don't think this happened organically. There are some real influences that love seeing the country divided.
Well, saw I saw today that there was an application that pay him $200 to go and sign up to protest. So that is outside influence. With that being said, they have the right to do that. If you got the money, you got the right to do that. But you're getting the fringe a little bit, and you're driving the media. The media has to pick it up. Have you noticed? Once again on both sides. When the cameras are off, nobody's fighting. They start fighting when the cameras are there. I understand all that. That's the way life is. People want to be on TV on that. But I think there is a responsibility for the media to accurately report. How do you do that? Probably run them out of business on both sides. I really mean that. So uh, it, the No Kings protests, you know, do we have a king? Come on, we don't have a king. I heard someone say he can't even get the TSA people paid. How could he be a king?
Mhm.
So what I'm getting at is, all right, that should maybe just a title, but we have to do better. Here's what they do in Washington. Once a year, they go on retreats. They go on retreats, each side, and they go and talk strategy. Okay, that's good. Maybe we ought to require a retreat where they got to get together themselves and get to know each other or something. Maybe that's foolish talking that way. But the biggest thing is, I think if we could get people elected that have good hearts, I think that would be a good thing. Here's the problem. What is it? 80% of the people represented are lawyers. Not all lawyers. You always need one at some time in your life, but they're not always the best policymakers,
Mhm.
truthfully. Uh, you know, I think there needs to be diversity. I really mean this. There needs to be someone that owns some store in your town that runs. Now, how do they do that? It's probably impossible because you need money. Money's a big thing in politics. And I haven't raised any money. I could. I know people. I've been around here. Someone offered me a $5,000 check, and I thought, right when I first started, and I didn't take it. I didn't take it. So here's what I did. I went and knocked on doors, and we knocked on thousands of doors. That don't take money. That takes uh, not being tired that day.
Mhm.
Here's what I'm saying. And then we talked to a lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans. At the end of the day, I came away that we're not too far apart. I really mean that. At the end of the day, now out of let's say 1,000 in a week, I would say only two slammed their door in my face and said, "Get off." But the rest, I found that they were pretty normal, good people. So there you go. That's what I'm saying. And I think we got it. Maybe, people need to hold people's feet to the fire, demand that we try to work on the things that are important. Everyone has mental illness that affects their family. Every
Yeah.
family has something in it with addictions or something. Okay, let's try. Here, they shut down. They had a place them in jails. I understand we got to lock people up if they shoot someone and that. I get it. I believe that. But, we got to do better. Everyone doesn't belong in a jail cell. Now, if they do wrong, rob, okay, got it. But they shut down the mental institution here
Mhm.
down the road. That was a federal project. Well, I think we need to be thinking a little bigger on these problems.
Yeah, I mean, even when it comes to prisons, that is a really complex issue because we know that private prisons are a thing. There's a prison industrial complex, and there's a lot of people that get financial incentives from
Yeah,
keeping these prisons up and
yeah.
running. We know that there is legalized slavery even when it comes to the labor that these prisons produce. People are making money
Totally,
from having people incarcerated. So when there's a financial incentive, you're not really incentivized to fix the issue. The same thing we could say
totally,
about healthcare, homelessness, prisons, war. There's always a financial incentive to keep that same issue from to continue happening. And there's a lot of people that want to fix those issues, but we need to get down to the root of the problem. And you need to follow the money. Who's funding these issues,
totally.
and
the
also who's
pri-
receiving the money?
Go ahead.
No, and like who's
Oh,
who's funding these issues, and who's the one getting the money?
the people that are making money out of it. A lot of our prisons are privatized uh, today. Okay, I'm not against privatization on that, but if they have an incentive to keep that person in prison longer, because they're making 55,000 a year off that person being in that prison. Well, they're not going to, they're not going to. They want, instead of having 800 in that prison, they want 1,000 in that prison. It's an incentive. So you got to do the same with the more war machine, the industrial complex. That's big money. There's, to make certain weaponry. Now we should have the best. I agree, and we should be well supplied. I agree, but there can't be an incentive where they push our country into war because they want to profit. You could do that with down the line with most issues. That, like I said, you know, uh, I'm a okay. I watch Fox News more than CNN, but I'm not young like you, so I still watch the news in the old way.
Mhm.
But with that being said, both are trying to profit off the stories. There's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But we got to be smarter than that. In every area, there's things that are pushing us in the wrong way. So that's why you need podcasts like this to fight against it.
No, yeah, that's absolutely right. So, uh, and from what I'm understanding is that you're not really taking any money for your campaign, so you support the idea of campaign finance reform, right?
Oh, 100%.
And like
Now,
it,
I'm not saying I won't take any in the general.
yeah.
I may have to change because the reporter's getting mad at me. The local reporter says, "You're not even going to have a campaign. You're not even going to be credible if you don't start taking money." So they kind of push me in it. I haven't done it yet, but I don't know. They say it's a long shot to win anyway. So maybe I'll just keep doing it the way I'm doing it, and hey, let the chips fall where they fall. The something good's going to come out of it anyway. I'm going to get to know more people, and I'm going to become a better person at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But hey, money. You don't need money to. And okay, don't get me going on that. Go ahead.
No, but that's the point that I was going to make, that you could run this without any money, but it's extremely hard to get to the election and be elected, because one thing is the money helps fund the campaign, and another thing, it has this component to the money that's almost like a race, who's able to raise more money. But we know that someone that raises more money than candidate B is not necessarily going to win the election. But there is some of that, if a campaign is able to raise money that helps the campaign as well. But there's some people that just go along with that and start raising money from so many different corporations. And now, when you're receiving money from corporations, they're basically buying you. And I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So if you receive money from a corporation, they're not doing it from the good of their heart. They're expecting something in return. So now you're basically a servant to that corporation and not the American people.
100%. If now national elections, you got to raise money. You do. But local, your representative, come on. I mean, okay, the district's big, but you don't have to raise millions. And the other side, I think it was the most expensive race. The top three candidates raised 6 million, each or so. I don't know exact number, but it was up there. They are going to expect. They are going to expect. There's lobbyists get paid for a reason, and lobbyists, they lobby our government. My son was one. I know all about it. I'm glad he got paid, but I didn't agree with everything the way they operate. At the end of the day, if someone gives you money, they're going to want to expect something. I think when it comes to close relation, I think we really got to rethink this whole thing about money into some races. I don't know how, but I don't think it's helping us. Corruption is big, and
Mhm.
corporations at the end of the day are driving much of the agenda.
Yeah, no, that's completely correct. And I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons that I supported Bernie in the first place. And especially when it comes down to supporting a candidate, people think that you support every single s- issue there on their platform. And that's not necessarily true. But I mean, you're not going to agree with someone 100% with everything they support, but there's going to be a lot of things that make sense that they're pushing. But one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to have him in office was because he was against the entire corporations funding campaigns and then basically becoming legalized bribery. And we know that now when you have an entire uh, body of government doing the same thing, you lose touch with the American people because now you don't really want to protect your citizens, and you want to do all of these different things, especially with No King's protest and every single protest that we know is part of this bigger influence, that there's money coming from elsewhere to push certain candidates. It's for a reason, and it's not for the reason that we're being shown, but a lot of people are also impressionable, and they will go along with a protest just to feel like they're being a good citizen when they're just being used. And it's almost like if they're being used as a tool to push this bigger agenda that it's not their fault, because there are bigger powers in play doing that. And it's all to just have certain issues from being protected on behalf of corporations, or certain issues being pushed. And that's why lobbyists even exist. And for lobbyists to even be a thing, it could be a good thing, but it also, we know that it's definitely a bad thing, because a lot of lobbies work to push certain issues that protect corporations and not actual people.
100%. Lobbyists, uh, no, I don't know. I don't think they're a good, I mean, their goal is to drive an agenda. Their goal is to, like this dying foods or whatever. If the corporation can make something cheaper or readily available, and this is the route they want to do, they could hire a lobbyist, pay them 200,000. If you're a lobbyist, you probably have like six. Corporations that you're lobbying for, and those lobbyists make a lot of money, but their whole goal is to push the agenda of the corporation, whether it's even good or bad. I'm sure some are good, of course, but there's some that are bad. I mean, things that they're advocating for. So with Bernie, I agreed with that. I agreed with his approach. That's the thing that when I heard him a few times, I haven't heard him much, that struck a chord, because he was authentic about that, and that's why he got a lot of young people. But I think for us, we needed, especially for representative. That's a big thing. You're not running for president, even Senate, two senators of the state, local, federal representative. I don't think you should be controlled at all by corporations at
Mm.
all. I think it has to be uh, the people. I really do, because you need to answer to what's best federally for the people. It's not a state office. It's going there and to represent. And you can't be beholden to a corporation. They're, so okay, they control the money, and they'll offer, and then at the end of the day, they're going to want to pay back, and that's where we're going wrong. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that's hurting our nation.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when it comes to politics and politicians, I think the biggest or the most important trait they could have is authenticity, because we need that in politicians. And a lot of politicians just work like robots. Like they have no empathy with anyone. And I mean, so I've met people that have met Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they all tell me that she's like one of the nicest people they've ever met. And so it kind of sucked watching her resign from office or just not running again. But I can't say the same thing about like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz just appears like a snake to me. And we need less people like that and more people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Bernie in office.
With that being said, I don't. Ronald Reagan had says the fifth, well, no, the 11th commandment, never say something bad about the party you're representing. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was running, say some stupid things
Mhm.
that thinking, come on. Now I started to like her more as she, towards the end. But at the beginning, she was playing to the cameras too a little bit, but whatever. No, I think you're right. Authenticity is a big thing,
Mhm.
and that's where we gotta see through this, and um, we gotta have people that have a pure heart, a clean heart, and don't have agendas. It's not about politicians. It's not about being a career politician. I don't know how we get over that. I
Yeah.
really mean this. This is not words. How can someone that owned a pizza shop,
Mhm.
or someone that even owned a bar, or someone that, well, okay, a pastor, how can that person, you know, represent, get the support behind them, and represent? It seems like it's impossible today. And like I say, 80% are lawyers. Don't want to make fun of lawyers all the time, but we got to do better. I really mean that. We got to figure out a way. I think your generation, I think that they're seeing through some of this. So maybe I might be dead by then. But maybe what I'm getting at, because I'm older, that's what I meant by that. Maybe there's hope.
Mhm.
Maybe there's hope, and maybe that we'll see a change there. Hey, things change one way. Every generation, things change. So I think there's a possibility. Look, there was any podcast like this years ago.
Mhm.
So I think alternative things. I think that maybe uh, uh, authenticity can win the day.
Mhm. No, I agree, and I really believe that there is going to be some good change. It's there's always going to be balance or a balancing in the process because we saw it with cancel culture. People were just getting canceled left and right for saying something just like mildly controversial. And I don't necessarily agree with that because now you're canceling voices, but it was going in a good direction as people were starting to understand that this is not the way that you should speak about someone or about a thing. So they had a good heart. The only thing was now when you were counseling someone, now their voices were being restricted. And we can't have that either. We need to understand how other people think because if you don't understand how other people think, you are just in this echo chamber and in this bubble and you're protecting yourself from outside influences. You need to understand what's happening around you and that will help you to improve as a society and as a person. So I think we are going in the right direction, and there's always going to be certain things that move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, just move out of bounds. But it's always going to be in the direction to improve as a society.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I think that's once again, I think there's hope because uh, there are people that are rising up, and there's nothing wrong with organizing. You got to organize. You got to do that. But I think that it's a good day, and so yeah.
Mhm. So yeah, so I enjoyed this conversation, and it was really interesting in talking about all these different things. And I just wish I'm able to have more conversations like this one without all the fighting because we're so divided. And I just hope that we weren't as divided as we are. But that's natural. It's gonna happen. I just
It's
hope that we are able to understand that we're mm, more similar than we are different.
you know, Trump won this election on immigration, probably. Yeah, lots of things, but
Hmm.
immigration. In our church, don't want to bring up our church again, but
Hmm.
we have a lot of illegal immigrants. Not a lot,
Hmm.
some in our church. When we were at some debate with the other side, the Democrats, I said I probably written more letters and gone to court more times than all of you put together for illegal immigrants, and that's the truth. And I have. I was someone yesterday in my office trying to help them. Now, with that being said, do I believe that that's an issue? Yeah, I do. So I believe in a lot of things President Trump's saying and doing, but there is a different side of it. When you get to see people's stories, you get to see, where they're coming from. Now, then you start to see things differently.
Hmm.
So we have to. I'm not trying to bring up another subject here towards the end here, but I was just piggybacking on the end there.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at, so I'm forced to, as a pastor, cross over and see the other side, and I'm very, my heart melts for
Hmm.
people's stories. With that being said, someone was killed, down the street by someone that was hiding in, from Venezuela that was here that shot someone in the back. Do I like that? Of course not. I was out there against that. But with that being said, we got to try, and this is a
Hmm.
good way of doing it. This podcast, and it's a good way of trying to build bridges and to have a conversation. So I appreciate the conversation with you. I listened to one of yours the other day. One of my son, I said, "Who is this guy? We're going to do a podcast." So I set it on our family text, and he got me one of your things, and I listened to it. I thought, this guy's not so bad. So I would listen to one of your former interviews or something, or
Yeah.
conversations, and I thought, now that's a reasonable person. So there you go. Maybe reasonable is the a good way to put a end on it. There, we have to think that way.
Well, thank you. And I mean, it was great having you on.